This program is brought to you by Ubalaba Ilonggo Air, Gralex Glass and Aluminum Services, Chicken House, Ting Ting's Native Food, Chong Tapsilogan and Sizzlers, and Green Tree Gelato.
And we're back on Editor's Table with former Governor Rafael Coscolluela, one of the, let's say, lucid thinkers of his time. Gov, how would you describe the country's state of affairs?
As a people, we are fragmented. We're not thinking of nation, we're thinking of ourselves.
Identity politics.
Politics is as corrupt as ever, if not more. Voters are influenced more by the money available than the benefits that a country can get from good governance. In other words, I think when you really look at it, good governance has lost meaning. Good governance, in the eyes of many people, is a politician's ability to meet my needs. So wala kita sense of nationhood. So how do you develop a strong republic? Kung sundot mo tong kay Gloria. She had the right idea, a strong republic, but it was not translated into an attitude among the people. So very fragmented kita. We have lost our sense of nationhood, as I said, and we have become very selfish, as a people. My interest first, country much later.
An example of which perhaps is in Baha. Everyone blames government, but no one wants to take responsibility for not throwing
Correct.
garbage.
We've all developed this ining attitude lang. We expect a lot from our government, but we don't expect too much from ourselves. So we expect government to be responsive, to be responsible, to be effective, but we don't demand responsible citizenship from ourselves.
The civic duty.
Ang civic duty. There's no sense of civic duty among many Filipinos. No? So that's why every time I see individuals or groups take on a mission for the sake of country, for the sake of a community, etc., I wish we had more people like this. No? And that's why my part of my wish as well as advocacy for the last maybe several years is for Filipinos to begin to realize nga it is not our leaders who are important, it is us. We need to develop a strong society, a strong civil society in order to force a good government. But if you don't have a strong civil society, you will have strong leaders who will dictate on us. And that's exactly what's happening. So,
it's interesting, I find it interesting that you did a sort of historical synopsis sa mga past administrations and you took into account yung mga faults of each one of them. Slavoj Žižek did an analysis on this, and he said na the rise of right-wing populists, for example, like Duterte, Putin in Russia, and then we have Trump in the US, is mainly because people have become disillusioned because of the failures of the grand narratives.
Yeah.
Socialism
versus capitalism, and then we have the failures of, people were banking on Cory and the Aquino name to do something, to do some damage control, to undo the damages that were done during the Marcos years. And then there's this prevailing sentiment na all those human rights violations, corruption, and all of the things happening during the Marcos years were also happening, but in a different package lang during the succeeding years. So any comment on that?
Uh, yeah, correct na, no? People are generally disillusioned with the way governments are run. No? But that's because we have become selfish. We expect someone else to solve our problems for us. And that's basically because of the way politicians project themselves. Vote for me because I will solve your problem. Vote for me because I will help you. Vote for me because I will do good. And then turns out wala manggali. Or, you know, ang ginatawag nga bulig is really patronage politics. So after a while, people begin to sense nga, number one, they're all the same. They promise the same things, but they deliver very little. So when you've lost your confidence in the way government is run by the same people all the time, you begin to look for alternatives. And that's what makes, I think, the rightist, what was the term you used?
Right-wing populists.
The right-wing populists. That's what makes them so attractive now. People are thinking, well, come to think of it, if the others have not worked out the way we expect, maybe this time, mas mayo pa, no? Again, because people look for messiahs, people who will solve their problems for them. How do you react when you begin realizing this promise represented by this right-wing populist turns out to be empty? What's your next alternative? That can be scary when you think, supposing a certain incident happens that becomes the, what's the term? The
Flashpoint.
There's a term. There's a book about that. The
Turning point.
turning point.
You're talking Gladwell.
Tipping point.
The tipping
Tipping
point.
point.
Supposing an incident happens, it becomes the tipping point that tells people, I made a mistake in believing in this person. Din kita makadto. What alternatives are people going to look for? Are they going to say, it's hopeless? We've tried everything, nothing's worked out. So anong pangitahon nila, no?
And then anarchy comes in.
And then there will be a competition among different interest groups who will say, I'm the better option now. So may struggle for power. That's why I'm apprehensive about the prospects for the next president. Whether it is someone who, in the case of VP Leni, for example, if she takes over, if the incumbent dies before the end of term, or it becomes elected, no? Or any other president who becomes elected in the 2022 elections. I'm scared because the expectations elevated pagit ni siya. People are saying my failure of all these past administrations, a lot of unkept promises by the incumbent administration, then mangita na sila, ti ano pang aton makita sa nini? What if people say, what's the point? But that creates a scenario where you now have a situation that is ripe for, as you said, chaos.
Yeah. It's going to be a free market of violence. And I don't know actually.
So, ang kwansin na diri is, let's talk about VP Leni, for example. No? I think we all know her values. Okay? If and when she becomes president, whether it is by succession or election, what will people be thinking about? people will look for a leader who will restore democracy. Okay? But people will also be expecting someone who will be strong enough to make things right with our institutions, military, police, all the armed forces, then your judiciary, Congress, local governments, all these institutions that have been either corrupted or weakened. What does a new president do in order to make all of this right again, to overturn all the all the damage and make things right for all these institutions? The next president will have to find ways to strengthen all of these institutions, at the same time make them loyal to the Constitution.
Okay, but let's go first to the question. What is essentially wrong right now?
Our institutions have weakened.
Example.
The judiciary. Anong perception ng public? It's under the undue influence of the executive. It has lost its independence. And of course, since all the way back, many Filipinos still think that the judiciary is corrupt. It only works for the ones with money. It doesn't work for the ones without. Congress. Again, the perception is Congress is controlled by a political monolith under the president. No? So what the president says, Congress follows. The Senate, which is supposed to be our bastion of independent thinking, what is it now? It's become a roosting ground for Duterte psychopaths. Save for, I know quite a few good senators, but, that sense of an institution that can uphold independence, good thinking, wala na. The military, the PNP, all of these institutions have weakened. They've lost their credibility. Unfortunately, even the military and the PNP also think, in many cases, that civil government is not doing its job. So they're beginning to develop this attitude. If civil government is not capable of doing right or doing well enough, then maybe it's better nga kami na lang. No? This is the kind of thinking that's beginning to trickle into the mindset dito sa Muslim Mindanao. No?
When we come back, let's take a look at figures. What does the United Nations say about the Human Development Index in the Philippines? And a lot more after this.